We've completed our second offseason here in the New Orleans Saints franchise. I streamed on Friday. It went over 3.5 hours. If you'd like to watch the long version, I did put chapters on there so you can skip around. But today, I'm recapping all the highlights of that stream, plus some stuff I did afterwards. Going into this offseason, I expected it to be really challenging, but a couple things made it easier. Taysom Hill and Demario Davis retiring was the equivalent of us gaining $30 million in cap space. That's really big for a team in our position that had the 32nd ranked defense last year. Once we got to Super Bowl week, we see that Tommy Tomlinson did get superstar development from his 5-interception season, but also Paulson Adebo, who is set to be a free agent for this stream, racked up a lot of tackles, 2.5 sacks, 2 picks. He also got to superstar. The secondary has been our best position group on defense, but I knew there was so much more to do. And I spent a lot of my time in draft prep trying to find players that could be impact core guys that we build around for the future. Along with other positions like tight end, with Jawan Johnson now being a free agent and not having interest in returning. This was set to be an extremely good tight end class. And with the Derek Carr experiment not working, I was hoping this would be a stronger quarterback class. But there were only day 3 projected players. David Mayweather was really the only quarterback in this class that I liked, but I didn't think he was a guaranteed franchise quarterback or anything. This was going to be an extremely important draft for us, picking at number 4 overall. The first step, though, in free agency was to find new offensive and defensive coordinators. We do see there are a lot of head coach firings, which could make for some interesting additions. I had already found a couple coordinators that I thought fit the positions I wanted to focus on developing. So starting on offense, I targeted Will Hudson here because he does help with quarterback development on deep accuracy. He does have some halfback development as well, and some O-line. We're trying to get younger, we have a team to develop, and not every player is going to be elite, so picking the right coordinators is really key here to focus in on the things that are most important to how I want to build this team. So I felt like he was a really good start to getting this offense kind of ready for its next chapter. Then for the defensive coordinator, I targeted Marlon Burgess. That second level tree helps a lot in run defense for the linebackers, and that was a huge problem for us last season. Block shed for middle linebackers I think is key. The strength for outside linebackers is really nice. So Burgess was the coordinator I liked the most. Now, if I wanted to go and take a fired head coach like DeMeco Ryans, that would sound great on paper. The issue in Madden is DeMeco Ryans is a head coach, so he only has head coach development and no coordinator development. That's a really big oversight, as he doesn't offer us any value as a coordinator. He's really only good for being a head coach. So we end up going with Hudson and Burgess to coordinate and lead us into year 3. Next up for us, preparing for re-signing, was to clear some cap space. Alvin Kamara, 30 years old, coming off basically a lost season due to injury. However, he is still hurt, and because of that, you actually cannot release injured players, which meant that this $29 million had to stay on the books through free agency. I was, however, able to release Derek Carr. I talked about this in previous videos. I'm not going to trade him with those inflated cap numbers as he regresses. I don't consider him to have any real trade value, so I released him to free up $34 million while we eat $11 million in dead money. We are moving on entirely from the Derek Carr era. That leaves us with only Jake Haener and Malik Cunningham at quarterback, with picks at 4 and then no second round pick, but we had 2 picks in the 3rd round. One of my goals in this offseason was to acquire more top 100 picks. And at 4, I was thinking about moving down, because my favorite player at this point was Juan Beard. He was the most complete pass rusher to me. He can rush with finesse, rush with power, play the run. He's a good athlete. He was projected to go later than a lot of players that are expected to go in the top 5. More on the draft here in a bit. Here is the re-signing stage, also the 5th-year option decisions. We pick up the 5th-year option on Chris Olave, putting him under contract for an additional year, while rejecting the same option for Trevor Penning, who will be a free agent after year 3. Juwan Johnson, unfortunately, didn't have interest in returning, but that did line up with a really good incoming tight end class. Paulson Adebo's move to superstar had me really wanting to find a way to keep him around. I was not going to franchise tag him and pay him $23 million, however. With the retirement of Demario Davis, linebacker became a concern, and with this extra cap space we now had, I felt like we could offer a deal to Pete Werner, and he accepted a 3-year, $21 million contract. We were not looking to re-sign a lot of the role-playing veterans, Jawan Jennings, AJ Epinesa, Peyton Turner. I'm looking to bring in some younger players to hopefully fill in those roles and really turn this roster over for the second offseason. I did want to bring back Evan Brown, but he turned us down. And that leads us into unrestricted free agency. What opportunities would be out there as we came in with $68 million in cap space? That is not bad at all. Nick Chubb, Jalen Waddle, Tua Tagovailoa, Javon Holland. The Dolphins are losing everybody. And with our position, would we target Tua Tagovailoa? I thought about it quite a bit, but I knew we had a lot of building to do on defense as well. This team is not a quarterback away from anything. Aleem McNeil, 25 years old, good run stopper. I felt like that was a good place for us to begin. And then Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Thought he was a really unique prospect when he came into the NFL, and he would be a perfect Demario Davis replacement and would give a big boost to the next era of our defense. There was also Paulson Adebo. I wanted him back on this team, especially because I felt like trading Marshawn Lattimore was possible in this offseason or even in the future, so I wanted to keep Adebo around just in case. And then a player who might not fit everything I'm looking for because he's a little bit older, but a player whose versatility I absolutely covet. I'm looking for hybrid safeties. I want safeties who can do more than just one role. And despite him being 29 years old, Jabril Peppers fits what I want. I also didn't feel like, given our needs and the state of the roster, that targeting a safety early in the draft was a good option. So I wanted to target Peppers in free agency. So I spent the early portion finding the defensive players I wanted to bring in. McNeil, Adebo, JOK, Peppers all got offers, which left us with not enough money to even offer to Tua Tagovailoa, because he wants something in the $47 million range per season and already had a lot of interest from other teams. So if we were to look at alternatives, Jordan Love was available. I'm a Viking fan. This didn't, feel comfortable, but I knew Love was actually a fit for what I wanted to do, especially compared to guys like Zach Wilson or Trey Lance. I knew Love was a step above those guys in terms of being a developed quarterback, and I felt like I had to go after him. I thought he would legitimately be an excellent fit, so he was our 5th player for this free agent stage. Those deals are evaluated. Peppers and Love don't make decisions while we sign Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Paulson Adebo, and Aleem McNeil. I thought that was an excellent start. JOK is such a good replacement for Demario Davis, and he played such a key role that just replacing him with a rookie honestly wasn't a good idea. Nick Chubb chooses the Bears, while Tua Tagovailoa chooses Houston. Why are they even interested? They have CJ Stroud, who's not doing what he did in real life, but he still has the tags that should keep the Texans from even pursuing a quarterback. So I wanted to reverse that signing, get Tua off the Texans and see him go elsewhere. But Jordan Love still had not made a decision, and the Packers did want to bring him back. Jabril Peppers does choose the Saints after the next evaluation period. So we've already revamped this defense nicely with these veterans with a lot of draft capital to do the rest of the work. We see here Jalen Waddle is going to Tennessee, and the Dolphins have lost a lot of talent this offseason. They were the best team record-wise in our franchise last year. Meanwhile, we're going head-to-head with Green Bay. And we don't have a lot more cap space to try and increase the offer for Jordan Love, but I did a little bit more. Would that be enough for us to have a new quarterback? We move on to the following stage, and we see Jordan Love returns to Green Bay. Our search will continue, and the Texans just keep signing to us, so I had to keep undoing that signing. When it came to quarterback, I felt like there was one trade option I would consider, and that was for Baker Mayfield. I thought he was a little bit better than guys like Sam Darnold, who were available as free agents. But if we have to give up a mid-round pick, that to me felt like trading a starter for Baker Mayfield, which I did not want to do. Jared Goff was available, looking for $40 million. Zach Wilson is still there. Who do we go after? I actually ran a poll on the stream when I was live that included Tyler Huntley, I think Sam Darnold, and Trey Lance. Overwhelmingly, the chat was in favor. Over 60% voted for Trey Lance. And I did feel like with a more running emphasis and whatnot that he was a fit. I also knew we had to get some tight ends on this team, so I did offer a contract to Josh Oliver, who is a very good blocking tight end. And then we see Juwan Johnson. He's going to go team up now with Jordan Love in Green Bay. I do plan on using a fullback this year. Reggie Gilliam got an offer as well. So we look to evaluate these offers now, and a couple decisions are made. We have signed Josh Oliver and bring back Eric Stills. We evaluate again, and we have signed Trey Lance. He will have now his third opportunity. Not that backing up Dak Prescott was much of an opportunity, but another chance maybe to start in the NFL. But I felt like with our cap space, we could pursue another quarterback and maybe have a preseason competition. I offered 3-year contracts to Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. We have such an uncertain future, I wanted to take a couple swings in free agency here. And that's what we're setting up for the preseason. Trey Lance versus Sam Darnold, just like the good old days in San Francisco, only this is going to be for a starting job. Trey Lance also has a lower injury rating, so having a capable backup I thought was also crucial. Got to think about the development of young players on offense and having a capable quarterback there. As we prepared now for the draft, we see my favorite target, Juan Beard, was falling further and further down the board. A player with above average athleticism, excellent finesse moves, complementary power moves. I couldn't figure it out. So I knew in my private workouts I wanted to finish his profile, along with profiles for tight end Kevin Blackwell and guard Tony McLeod. So we made those three the individual workout players, and come to find out, Juan Beard only has round 2 to 3 talent. So his overall is just lower than a lot of the other edge rushers, which to me was still confusing looking at his skills. I could not process, nor could I really accept it. I was fixated, and I get fixated on guys in the draft quite a bit. Now, there are a lot of other C and D ratings. Some of those don't matter, some of those do. I had to take a deeper look at some of the alternatives. I had a list of 4 players I liked at 4 overall, and Juan Beard was on there. I also had a list of players I thought I could trade back, but still be happy taking. Guys like Sebastian Dillinger or Marcus Caldwell. The issue is we've had a pretty weak front 4 in this series. Free agency wasn't about to change that, and I don't think our defense can take a step until we address the front 4. And Aleem McNeil doesn't solve the pass rush problem. There were some good options. I wanted to take a good edge rusher in the first round while still finding a way to acquire more picks. So That led me to want to trade down from 4, acquire those picks, and still get a guy like Juan Beard. And with Beard falling down the board more, that would sound like a good situation, but with his talent grade as a round 2 to 3, it just made things a lot messier. So let's get to the NFL draft. The Houston Texans select number 1. I got my webcam on now so you can see reactions and such. The Texans opened by taking Dalton Webb, who was one of the 4 players on my board that I liked at 4. Jerry Pounds went next. He was also on that board. Tampa Bay at 3. Deviates from defense and goes with a tackle in James Wheeler, which left Juan Beard and Javier Garland as my players I liked at 4. But I knew I would be looking to trade down. And this was probably the worst part of the entire offseason if you wanted to watch that full video. I spent literally 30 minutes putting together a trade, trying to find a way down, trying to get the future picks that I wanted, and just trying to get a deal I liked. The baseline offer from Minnesota wasn't quite what I wanted. I wanted to squeeze more value out of them for a fall into the 20s. I was even willing to give up players like Alontae Taylor or Jordan Howden. And it was kind of agonizing, you know. I wish that it had gone by faster, but I wanted to get a trade I was happy with and certainly wasn't going to rush it. And then in the middle of it, I decide, you know, we're going to quickly just go on a little side quest here, and we're going to trade away Eric McCoy, our starting center. So Tennessee had interest, wouldn't give me the 2 and the 4. They settled on the 3. So in the middle of trying to trade down from 4, I trade our starting center away for a 3rd round pick, which not popular at the time. I can't even look back and tell you why I felt motivated to do it in that moment. But I knew there were some players I was interested in possibly moving for extra picks. And as the trade down situation here looked a little more bleak, I thought, okay, let me just trade our starting center for a 3rd round pick. I almost got a deal done here with Minnesota. They played such hardball. I decided I was leaving Taylor out of discussions with them, and I traded him to the Patriots for a 4th round pick, which felt a lot better. Taylor just doesn't have a huge role with us going forward. I experimented with other teams as well. The Raiders liked Pete Werner. I know I had just signed him a little bit earlier, but getting JOK made me feel like I'd be okay trading Werner, and this is the deal we got. We dropped down from 4, giving up Pete Werner to drop back into the 20s while acquiring a 2nd round pick, a 2nd round pick in the future, and a 4th round pick from the Raiders. It helps our draft this year. It helps our draft next year. But we fall a long ways. Javier Garland off the board. Those are my top prospects taken. Now for my trade back options, that included guys like Marcus Caldwell. He's gone. Steelers take the first receiver that was not a target of mine. The Bears take Sebastian Dillinger, the guard, who was an excellent prospect. Then it's Conrad Kiernan. Offensive linemen weren't really on my radar at this stage. And we didn't pick until 22, so it was going to be difficult to see a lot of my favorite options fall that far with us. Cade Haas goes to the Falcons. He's a deep threat receiver that we'll be seeing. Manny Carr goes to the Giants. San Francisco takes Sal Hayden. We approach the 20s. Baltimore takes a receiver in Clay Addison. Then Seattle at 20 goes with Matthew Russell, who was on my trade back board. And the Vikings, 1 pick ahead of us. We couldn't get a deal with them. They take Andrew Madden, who was the last defensive player on that trade back list, which meant the only player I had on any of my main lists here I created was Juan Beard. And this was about the range he was going to go. We didn't have any other, first round caliber edge rushers, it appeared. And Beard, with round 2 to 3 talent, he didn't seem to be that elite first rounder either, but I still took him because I believe that even with normal development, he's got the skill and we can develop the rest. That is the chance I'm taking. Now, if I had a deal done with Minnesota and I had the option of Andrew Madden, who might have been a little bit more of a safer first round pick, I honestly don't know what my decision would have been, but it would have been tougher. Now, this trade back did give us a second round pick that we were missing earlier, and I felt like we could continue to focus on the front four. Justin Medlock was a player I had a ton of interest in. Thought he could be a complete nose tackle. Aaron Jones, Antoine Mickens. Both these guys were good day two starting caliber defensive tackles. Then at linebacker, after moving off of Werner, we have James Bolden. He doesn't have a lot of cover ability. There were still some linebackers I liked. Marcus Jacobs was a good round 2 guy, but he went a little bit before we were on the clock. I don't think he would have been our pick anyway. So here in the second round, we turn that number 4 overall pick into Juan Beard and then Justin Medlock as well. An edge rusher and a 371-pound nose tackle. We also had a 4th round pick from the Raiders and the 2nd rounder next year. Now we work our way into the 3rd round, of which we have 3 selections to make. And I felt like here you could look to maybe replace Eric McCoy with another young lineman, or go with James Pittman, Kevin Blackwell. There were so many players here I felt could step into roles on day 1. I had a list of players that I thought would go in this range that I thought could also start. Marcus Byers is here. He wasn't even on that list, but I felt like looking at his ratings again that you can probably find a good role for him. So I had to load up on these day 2 picks, but ultimately I did go for the need here. After trading away McCoy, this was the player that made me feel comfortable doing that. Jimmy Ward. We get our first hidden dev player of the draft. A young 23-year-old center we can now develop as we shed some more salary and get a little bit younger on the O-line. Marcus Byers then on the board. The other thing here that was awesome is that we weren't going very long in terms of gaps between our selections. James Pittman going there did hurt because I think he might have been our pick here at round 3, pick 12. But I had plenty of options. So we lost Jawan Johnson, we signed Josh Oliver, and I've loved this tight end class. Kevin Blackwell, 270 pounds, blocks really well, but also is an excellent receiver. I thought he was a complete player, wasn't passing any longer. Kevin Blackwell, even with normal dev, I don't care about dev too much at tight end, honestly. I felt like this was going to be a huge pick for us. We're still in the 3rd round. We still have options out there, and I felt like there was still room to add even more defense. When you've got guys like Paul Redman available, who has excellent athleticism. He's a high-risk, high-reward prospect, being he's very injury-prone, but he's also really skilled. I'm taking chances on injured players here. And there are so many injured players throughout the classes that it almost feels like you just ignore it because so many have D or F injury. We end up with another hidden development player. We work our way into the 4th round where we have a couple more selections. We've now addressed a number of needs, but I wanted to think about doubling up at tight end because I liked 2 players a lot. And we do bring in Eddie Lovelock. I said this during the stream. I feel like he can be what Josh Oliver is now, an athletic blocking tight end, who's a lot more athletic than most blocking tight ends. Our second 4th round pick. We've addressed so much, and I felt like the caliber of player on the board now had changed. Do we think about another quarterback option, given how uncertain the future is? We draft David Mayweather. I wanted to believe in those accuracies, and at least I think with those, he has the skills to be a really good backup. I then traded away our last 4th round pick for a future 4, plus some really late selections. So we move our way now into the 6th round, selecting Brian Glenn for additional offensive line depth. We then had only 3 players on the board. In the late 7th round, I selected wide receiver Morgan Logan. And we cap it off with our last 7th round pick, Cassidy McLean. And that completes the year 2 draft. Here are the ratings. We ended up taking 5 straight players with 72 or higher development, Opening the draft with Juan Beard at 73. He's 21 years old. He's got so much talent across the board. I believe we're going to develop the player our defense is looking for. I was willing to take that chance. Let's hope I'm right. Justin Medlock was the next selection. 371 pounds. This is how you address run defense, but he also brings a lot of pass rush to the table. Jimmy Ward can easily step into that starting center role, and I think he can surpass what Eric McCoy developed into. Kevin Blackwell is absolutely a day one contributor with 85 speed, 67 run block, and already a 70 short route running. Development at tight end doesn't concern me. It's not a position where a lot of guys separate themselves. Blackwell has all the ability you need already. Paul Redman, 22-year-old hidden dev, another interior player who should fight for playing time this year as an early contributor. Hopefully he can stay on the field. Eddie Lovelock. I just like the tight end class a ton. I wanted to bring in two. He needs more time to develop, but I think he will turn into a good complementary tight end, and our scheme is likely going to require a couple. David Mayweather, the 23-year-old out of UMass. He does have pretty good accuracies on day one, and our new OC is helping out that deep accuracy. So he's going to get reps in preseason. Brian Glenn, just a backup guard at this stage of the draft. You're not expecting to take starters. Just want to add some cheap depth. I felt like we got lucky, though, with Morgan Logan at 69 overall. He has good release. I'm really intrigued and want to see him in preseason a bit. Our last pick was Cassidy McLean. Probably a long shot to make the roster. Maybe he's a practice squad guy. Looking at some of the other picks, though, that were taken. Dalton Webb went number 1, and he was a normal dev edge rusher. The two classes we've had so far have not really given us these superstars at the very top. There are good prospects, but elite blue chip prospects have been hard to come by. Jerry Pounds did have that hidden dev. He went number 2. Matthew Stokes was the player the Raiders traded up for with that strength and power move combination. I think that is a difference-making skill set. Simon Carter was the first safety taken at 82 overall, one of the highest rated players in the entire class. He lands in New York. Javier Garland was the player I could have taken at 4 if I wanted to stay, and he would have been a fine option. He's more athletic than Beard, better in finesse moves. Obviously, I chose a different path. Marcus Caldwell, one of my favorites, goes to Houston a little bit later, and the highest rated player in the class, here is the blue chip guard in Sebastian Dillinger. He is the number 5 ranked right guard without playing a snap in the NFL. Ideally, I like to see the best players go to spots where they can play early, and sometimes you see situations like this where the best running back is going to become Jonathan Taylor's backup. So that's kind of annoying. I want to see running backs take over starting roles throughout our franchise. And here is Andrew Madden with 83 speed, 90 strength, 76 power moves. I honestly don't know if it was between he and Beard who I would have gone with if I had the chance. Thought the Bears had a really good draft. They ended up with James Pittman as well as Sebastian Dillinger. So I think he is also going to be an immediate starter for them. We've got Cam Graham here going to the Buccaneers, one of the first tight ends taken. They also took a 73 overall linebacker in Brian Fox, a hidden dev receiver in Justin Randolph. So these are all players we're expected to face here going forward, and I think the Bucs had a solid overall draft class. Then we've got the Falcons' first-round pick, Cade Haas, a deep threat, who's got a lot of high skills for a rookie. He has a higher overall, but normal dev. We'll see what he turns into. He's a boomer bust player. Marcus Byers went to the Jets, and despite being an outside linebacker, did end up with pretty good cover skills and a lot of athleticism. The Steelers ended up with the top receiver in Courtney Bryson, already a 79 overall. He could be a big contributor early. I mean, his ratings, especially that 87 release, that is impressive. And that leads us into the preseason. and what I did after the stream came to an end. The first thing I wanted to do was look at Tua's situation. So he ended up going to the Jets. I edited his contract to be what it would have been in free agency. They had re-signed Zach Wilson. I altered his deal to be a cheap one-year contract. My plan here is to see how they get under the cap. And if they do some things that are really weird, cutting really good players, I will reload my save and I'll take over the role of the Jets owner and help them manage that cap and then just retire that owner so that they don't completely gut their team to make Tua's contract work. It should be manageable, but I want to make sure they manage it a little bit more optimally, I guess. Here's what we did, though, going into preseason. I've edited a bunch of our players to have different gear and changing positions, and then I signed a lot of free agents. There are some veterans here, like Eric Kendricks at linebacker. Trevis Gibson comes back. We signed Denzel Perriman. You'll see here, I released Alvin Kamara and then brought him back because it freed up a ton of cap space. And at the very least, if we go into the year with that space, it can be rollover for next year. So we were able to sign plenty of free agents, fill out this roster, and get ready for the preseason. Now, last year we had so many undrafted free agents make the team. I don't think it'll be the same way this year. I don't have as many I'm excited to see. I just don't think that we're in the same situation we were as last year. But here are a few players that stood out to me that will have a chance in free agency to fight for a roster spot. But between our two draft classes and what we've done now, I don't see there being a lot of room for UDFAs. For the second straight year, we're going to open our season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We face the AFC East this year, and we also face NFC powerhouse San Francisco. We close against Seattle. When we get to week 1, we face Derek Carr in the revenge game as he joins Tampa Bay. What a story that is. Here's a look at our depth chart going into the preseason. We have a lot to sort out yet. We have Trey Lance there listed at QB1. We'll see what happens there. Alvin Kamara with his regression. I don't know what's going to happen yet at running back at all. But I know I want to run the ball a lot more this year. I've already changed up the playbook. I think Lance is a fit. I'm intrigued. And defensively, I just love the talent influx that we've gotten this year through free agency and then the draft. There are going to be a lot of young guys fighting for playing time. I think we'll have a much more talented front four. We should not be 32nd ranked again. I've also gone ahead and done all the training camp drills. So I got a chance to play a little bit with guys like Trey Lance and some of the rookies I was also intrigued with. I'm still not exactly sure what our new scheme is going to look like, but I hope we can carve out a new identity this year and have capable quarterback play that helps us develop still young receivers, young tight ends. I felt like we had to throw a lot of resources at that spot, even if we didn't end up with a top guy. At running back, Alvin Kamara's speed is down to an 87, and I just want to see what's really left with his ability because I've been impressed with Kendre Miller, and it's not a guarantee I stick with Kamara going into week 1. I'm still trying to think long-term with this team, and if he doesn't seem like the same guy, I will be willing to cut him again, this time for good. This was the most impressive training camp drill, by the way. Kevin Blackwell at tight end, working in the red zone here, boxing out Marshawn Lattimore. This was actually a gold medal drill on the first try. I only retried one of these drills in the training camp. It was because I didn't get a medal at all on the first try. This is Juan Beard. This is an awkward drill, honestly. Trying to win 5 pass rush matchups. It ends up, you just run around a guy eventually. Get a gold there too, which actually earns him a skill point. Now, I do consider us to be a rebuilding team. We do have some good veterans that you might wonder why I didn't trade. I am kind of going half and half with the rebuild a little bit because I want to see if we can at all be ahead of schedule and what happens this year. But also, I think about guys like Marshawn Lattimore or Ryan Ramczyk. And if I want to trade them, I really don't think the value is a whole lot different if I trade them here in this offseason or maybe at the trade deadline this year if we're not doing well. So I like to keep the option open, you know, for us to maybe outperform expectations and for plans to kind of change. As long as I'm not sacrificing significant trade value there, I think it's okay to be patient because we still ended up with a deep class that should give us a lot of snaps this year. The other difficult thing is, do we have the franchise quarterback of this team on the roster? Somebody we can win with. If we don't, then Ramczyk, Lattimore can possibly help us get to that quarterback in the draft if we don't have enough resources already. Having a first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, and then these veterans makes me think we can find a way as long as the class gives us quarterback options this coming season. It was good to get some upgrades here, though. Juan Beard, he gets up to a 74 overall ahead of preseason. Kevin Blackwell to 76, making him the highest-rated tight end on the team. He's going to start on day one. And then Kendre Miller. I think there is a chance he is the lead back over Kamara right away. I've liked what I've seen. He has more athleticism at this point. We got to see now what happens on the field. Competition's going to be at quarterback, running back as well. Then at tight end, I don't think it's really a competition, but there are a lot of young guys that I want to get a lot of playing time, see how they block as well. And then figuring out, you know, who starts at edge rusher, who's the first guy to rotate in. I want to play a lot of different edge rushers, interior guys, and hopefully some of these jobs can be won handily, and we're not just settling on our options. We're going to have competition as well at linebacker. And then in the secondary, I think things are mostly figured out, but I guess between Tony Adams and Jordan Howden, we got to figure out who's going to be starting at one of those safety spots. Now, I tend to stream preseason quite a bit. Not sure it's going to work out for me this time. I believe I'll be working on the preseason throughout today's division round playoff games and trying to get as much done today as I can. So I don't know if I'll have consistent videos coming out this coming week, but I'm doing what I can this weekend to prepare for a little bit busier week for me. But preseason's coming next. A lot to sort out. New scheme, new quarterbacks. It's going to be fun. Can't wait to get you all that video and to play those games. And then it's on to year 3. We do it all over again. Hope you're excited about the future of this series, everybody. I think this was a fun off-season. Certainly, you know, I took some risks, and we'll see if those end up paying off in time. Let me know what you thought of the offseason, what we could have done differently, and how you see this team performing in year 3. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great day.